Throughout the opening prologue and stage one, the stunning city of Wuxi provided the backdrop for the Tour of Taihu Lake. Today, the race for the coveted orange jersey moves to Zhurong and Malshan. The wonderful combination of natural attractions such as the Qishan Lake National Wetland Park, where fishing is a major attraction, along with world-leading technology that is driving the strong economy. Zhurong is also the hometown of Jihong, the source of Xinhua culture, will also see the calming influence of Buddhism. Today's stage is a journey through the region's rich past and thriving presence. Was the Kiwi Dylan Kennett. Kennett had a good start to the season in March when he was a medalist at the Commonwealth Games. On the track in the individual pursuit, his team had set this as a major target. In the black and pink colours of the St George Continental Cycling Team, it was a blistering time from the Kiwi. 6 minutes and 9 seconds, an average speed of more than 53 kilometres per hour. It was the benchmark for the rest of them to chase. Wanty Group Coupe, they rode the Tour de France this year, they were in the race. Yannick Martinez in the blue colours for Dalco Marseille, one of the strong French teams, also went close but not quite good enough. Jacob Moresco, the charismatic Italian, a two-time winner of this race overall, he got off to a disappointing start. Moresco finishing in 109th position of 121 riders, a minute and 2 seconds behind Kennett's. Sergei Techkov, the Romanian, fresh off the back of having ridden the World Championships in Austria, was a key threat to the time of Kennett's. At the midway checkpoint, he was close. In the final 2 kilometres, he faded ever so slightly and ended up finishing in 3rd position, 7 seconds behind Kennett's.
Yeah, it's been a target of mine for a few months now. And team owner, Brett, messaged me after the Commonwealth Games and he said, you know, how would you like to come and do this race? And he said, yeah, I like your chances over the prologue. And yeah, and to get the job done today and to have Ben run second to me as well was really good for the team. And yeah, I'm really stoked, yeah.
Mission accomplished, so too for the team. Kennett going out the winner, his teammate Ben Dybel in 2nd position at just 3 seconds behind. Techkov in 3rd position at 7 seconds. He also had one of his teammates in 5th place. Ben Hu for the stage 1 course of 85 kilometres, and it was preceded with plenty of colour and local culture as well. The Buddhism presence, that was felt right throughout the stage. We saw the Grand Buddha on a number of occasions. The strong presence of the police making the race safe for both the riders, the spectators, and of course everybody that was working on the race as well. Modern dance to get the riders into the mood, ready to go. The local dignitaries had their opportunity to say a few words as well before the gun went to get the racing started. And within the first 500 metres, we saw the first attack of the race, and it set the tone for the remainder of the stage, and it would prove to be an incredibly quick day's racing. Not too long after that little flurry at the front, the Americans got on the front foot, particularly with the former national champion, Maricot, from the United Healthcare team. It was then his teammate, Techkov, wearing number 65, the former Romanian national champion, 3rd in the opening prologue, who really caught the attention of the peloton by going on the attack so early. That forced the St George cycling team to do much of the chasing early. The next move that came was even more serious. It included 5 riders. Also in there was the rider from United Healthcare. This time, it was the Canadian that was in the breakaway for them, as Alexander Cataford got himself into the move. So 3 early breakaways in the race, and each of them including a rider from United Healthcare. At the all-important intermediate sprints, Cataford, he won the first one. Coming to the second one, though, the challenge was on. He wasn't quite able to get the points on that occasion, but he was getting closer to the leader's jersey. At one point, they got out to an advantage of 1 minute and 22 seconds, as this is a look back at the second intermediate sprint, where Cataford was just pipped by Matic Grosjean of the Gusto team, collecting the maximum time bonus. A fall with just on 20 kilometres to go. A couple of riders unfortunately having to abandon the race on the back of that crash. One of the pre-stage favourites, Marechko, some of his teammates were also caught up in the fall, and that put him on the back foot as they came down to the final 4 kilometres and the frantic dash to the line. Wanted Group Goubert, one of the teams with a big favourite for the stage, Boris Valet, they were getting involved in the lead-out train, but nobody had complete control. Marechko, with the Willia Trestina team, he was bumping shoulders with the Wanted Group Goubert team, trying to fight for a spot at the fronts. But then taking a flyer from the outside, it was the Colombian Juan Sebastian Molano who fed off the other lead-out trains and timed his run to perfection. Alzate in the blue colours was bursting through for United Healthcare, but just waiting patiently in pink. Molano got the timing perfect, looked across to Carlos Alzate, his compatriots, and then drove it home to the finish to be able to collect the stage victory and continue what for him has been a successful season in China. This coming off the back of his victory at Tour of China 1. The 100-metre fountain providing the backdrop for Molano as he wins the stage ahead of Buglas. It was Danny Lopez in 3rd position. Zhang Zhang was in 4th place. It was then Parra rounding out the top 5. I felt really good and I'm very happy. My team did a great job when there was only 5 kilometres left to the finish. This was the first stage of the Tour of Taihu Lake, and we hope to keep on winning. And in terms of the leaderboard for the best Chinese rider, it's Wan Yu Lao who leads.
I had some mechanic problem at the start of the race. Thankfully, I got back in time and didn't lose time. And overall today was good, so I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I think there will be many attacks, and I have rode the stage tomorrow once before, and it will be a very hard stage tomorrow. So hopefully I can keep the jersey.
He knows the stage, and it will be a hard stage. Likewise for Dylan Kennett, who wears the orange jersey, is the overall race leader. It is Ben Dybel, his teammate, who's in 2nd position at just 3 seconds behind. Also threatening the orange jersey is Alexander Cataford at just 5 seconds off the pace of Kennett. The peaceful surrounds of Zhurong won't seem so peaceful to Kennett today. He knows that this will be his biggest challenge of the season on the road so far. And the scene is set for the second stage, getting underway with an opening ceremony with one of the most popular things that we see when celebrating Chinese culture, the dragon dancing before the stage started. The race itself is already underway. We'll get to look at some highlights from what has been a dramatic start to the stage, as there's a lot at stake, but the drums were out in force. There's barely a Chinese festival that you go to anywhere in the world where you don't get the opportunity to see the dragon dances. Slightly calmer, a little less boisterous, some of the women dancing as well. The dragon dancers, also the ladies, all volunteers from the local town, and an opportunity for them to demonstrate just how proud they are of their culture. Style of dancing that is synonymous with Chinese culture. Red and gold, the two famous colours of China, the red flag, the gold, the most sought after colour in China. The sign-on with Marechko leading on the Willia Trestina team. A disappointing day yesterday for Marechko, finishing in 10th position on the stage. The Ira trains, they had an outstanding day. 2 riders inside the top 10. Likewise for the Gusto team, they were very aggressive. Manzana, Postobon, brilliant. They had the stage victory with Molano. And UHC, they were aggressive, represented in the breakaways and moving closer to the orange jersey, which sits on the shoulder of Dylan Kennett. Last minute preparations before the stage gets underway. The Burgos BH team, they were good yesterday with Danny Lopez finishing in 3rd place.
Yeah, definitely we need to take advantage today. I mean, we'll see how it's gonna be control the race, the first 2 guys, and I mean, basically first team. Definitely we need to play our cards to be smart, because we can do result as well, and we'll see.
I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic that I'll be able to make it. I'm not a pure climber, so you know the real skinny guys will go full gas over the climb, and I just need to suffer and make sure I'm in the front, and then we see after that.
Yeah, today will be the most exciting stage of the tour with the 2 loops of that hard circuit, so it'll be interesting to see what the other teams do.
非常重要的，我们都挺重视能够保住这件衣服吧，就是一个可以争的一个小成绩这样。
Yeah, it's been nearly a year now since I broke my back in a crash in China, so I'm just happy to be back here again racing, really. And I'm feeling good. The form's coming along well, and so we'll give it a crack today. This is the only real stage of the tour where you could shake up the GC. We're about 20th on GC at the moment, so this is really our opportunity to try and do something this tour. So we're really going to give it a nudge today and see how it goes.
Yeah, yesterday I could make a good lead out from my team, but I have a mechanic problem at 700 meters from the finish. My kitting was going up, and it was over, and yeah, I hope to be good today on the sprint.
Well, they've all spoken about the climb. Let's now take a look at the course for today's stage. It's one of the longest stages of the race at 130 kilometres. They do 2 starting circuits before they hit the first of the 2 intermediate sprints. Then they make the journey down towards the finish line in Malshan, and that's when they hit the climbs. They come within striking distance of the finish line, and then they do 2 laps with 2 ascents of the major climb that everybody was talking about in those pre-stage interviews that we just saw. The last nervous moments before the gun goes to get the stage underway. And as soon as the gun went, the racing got underway in earnest. The opening couple of circuits, reasonably narrow sort of roads, and a lot of tension with time bonuses all important within this race, and the general classification extremely tight. Kennett leading with just a slender buffer of 3 seconds on his teammate Diable. It's in 5 seconds to Cataford. Chechkov at 7 seconds, Ben Wolf at 8 seconds. So a lot to race for. The Colombians in the pink colours, Manzana Postobon, the first to get the action started. A team that were brilliant yesterday. It was Juan Sebastian Milano collecting the stage victory. That moves him ever so slightly closer to the overall race lead. He sits at 40 seconds down, but he's also a rider that comes in with a lot of confidence and a very strong team around him. So right at the beginning of the stage, they were very much on the front foot. The St. George team, the teammates of Kennett, defending his position in the orange jersey as some of the older locals enjoying the bike racing, some of the younger locals trying to work out what all the fuss is about. Noting the Chinese flags just in the background, they're always a great reference point in a bike race as to what the weather conditions are like. And the wind is relatively light. Didn't take too long for that early move to be brought back into the peloton. As you can see, the hand signals from one of the riders from Jelly Belly just indicating that everybody needs to move in. That big figure in the white colour, that was Ben Wolf, who is well placed overall. Ben Wolf, in fact, sits at just 8 seconds behind. Willia Tristina also dipping their toe in the water early to see whether a breakaway might be a chance of getting away at the beginning of the stage. And then on that first serious left-hand turn, as it goes from 3 or 4 lanes wide down to just 1 lane wide, there was a fall. Fortunately, nobody seriously injured, but notable the fact that the blue jersey, number 103, the leader of the Best Young Rider classification, McGough was in the fall. So too was Eaton of United Healthcare, and Keegan Schwerbel of Jelly Belly also caught up behind the fall, as was Para from Manzana Postobon. That ignited the flames once again for the St. George team, with Ryan Kavanagh, one of the experienced members of the squad, setting the tempo at the front of the peloton, protecting the orange jersey of Kennett. The images coming to us from out on the motorbikes. The helicopters just restricted in their coverage of the race early on because of a little bit of cloud cover. And the conditions, though, generally for the riders, absolutely perfect. Temperatures in the low 20s, not much wind to speak of. St. George Continental Cycling Team controlling the race. The green jersey sits on the shoulders of yesterday's stage winner, Milano, always ever attentive at the fronts. So too the blue colours that you can see from the Delco Marseille Provence team. That's Rémi Rochard, who rode really well yesterday with a solid sprint finish, getting himself just inside the top 10 on the stage. He was the best of the Frenchmen from that squad, which is a good sign for him because he's here as an apprentice, job interview in fact. He's got a 3-month stint with the team to try and prove that he's worth signing on long term. The Jelly Belly team in the white colours, making sure that they were marking all the moves very early on. So too the Israel Cycling Academy with the blue and white colours, the little green tape on the legs. That is Hamish Shura's. The settling in period throughout the earlier part of the stage with St. George making sure they control any of the breakaways. Kennett, the rider in the orange jersey, his team manager, team owner, Brett Dutton, a little bit nervous about his ability to be able to fight for position in the peloton, but so far proving more than capable of being able to handle himself. A little bit of push and shove as well in the peloton, and a firm hip and shoulder. The rider from Manzana Postobon along with United Healthcare. That highlights how much is at stake in this race for these riders. It's not a case of an end of season holiday in China. There is a lot at stake for these riders. Many of them are looking to pick up contracts for next season. A lot of them trying to show their sponsors to the world as well. And that just reinforces that they are racing seriously, looking for the time bonuses at the intermediate sprint points and hunting for perhaps a breakaway and also to try and get the stage victory. All legal, the little rubbing. The firm hip and shoulder, though, it won't catch too much the attention of the race commissaires. Fortunately, no hands were taken off the handlebars. You're not allowed to take the hands off the handlebars, but you are entitled to fight and defend your position at the front. And part of the tension with the fighting for the position at the front is because of how narrow the road is. You can see the fluoro colours now on the left-hand side of the screen of Willia Tristina. Third in line with the slightly longer sleeves, that is their team leader, Jakub Mareczko, who's had a disappointing start to the race. He was nowhere near it on the opening day in the prologue, finishing in 109th position. And yesterday, for Mareczko in his favourite territory, he finished in 10th spot. He just got caught in the lead-out. He was stuck behind the wheel of Wesley Krieger from Wanty Group Goubert. And he spoke after the stage about the fact that there were riders in front of him who didn't want to sprint. And Krieger's role, in his defence, was not to actually do the sprint. It was to set things up for Boris Valet, their sprinter. But unfortunately, as we heard the interview with Boris Valet earlier on, he had a mechanical problem 700 metres from the finish line, so didn't get involved in the sprint at all. And you can see the movement on the right-hand side of the screen with the riders trying to improve their position and doing a bit of hedge trimming in the process, just ducking underneath those trees that are creeping over onto the side of the road. The first of the intermediate sprints coming very early on after just 22 kilometres having been covered. This is Chishan Lake, the National Wetland Park, one of the popular tourist destinations in the region. It's also the home of many kinds of birds, and lots of artists enjoy the opportunity to do some landscape painting as well. Not surprisingly, it is a popular spot for fishing, and not just for the purposes of eating, but also for recreational fishing. Stage 2 highlights. As is the tradition in the Tour of Taihu Lake, the gun going to get the race underway. The leaders of the various classifications, they all find themselves at the front of the peloton, right at the very start. The orange jersey sitting on the shoulders of Dylan Kennett. The green jersey, that is with the winner of yesterday's stage, Juan Sebastian Milano, the Colombian from Manzana Postobon. The blue jersey for the best young rider, that is with Cormac McGough of Jelly Belly. And the red jersey for the leading Chinese rider is with Wan Lu Liao of the Hong Kong cycling team. Manzana Postobon, very aggressive at the start of the stage to look to force a breakaway at the beginning of the day. And the flags on the side of the road are always a key sign to be able to indicate as to just how windy it is. Not too windy at all, but still there was a fall early on. The blue jersey of McGough, the leader of the best young rider classification, he was involved in the crash. So too Dan Eaton from United Healthcare, as well as another one of the riders from Jelly Valley, Keegan Swerble. He was caught up in the fall as well. Those riders pretty quickly, they remounted, rejoined the peloton, and the battle was on for positions at the front. And both riders in the pink colours from Manzana Postobon, the blue from UHC, showing their desperation to stay at the front. More falls at the back of the peloton. One of the riders here from Hainan Jilun hitting the deck fairly heavily, but also remounting. And that was after they lost two of their riders in the crash at 20 kilometres to go on yesterday's stage. This is Mark McNally at the front of the peloton for Wanty Group Goubert, doing the lead out for the first of the intermediate sprints. He launches Valet, then it is the Israel Cycling Academy with Avila, the Colombian. Alzate on his right, clips the edge of the road. Alzate heavily over the top, and he goes down and unable to return to the race. The points being taken by Boris Valet. It was Edwin Avila in second position, but most significantly, it was the damage that was done further behind to Alzate. Can feel the pain of the Colombian. And he was just trying to make that move up the inside of Avila, who closed the gate on him ever so slightly. The Colombian at the front from the Israel Cycling Academy, he didn't do anything technically wrong. And number 61, Carlos Alzate, another one of the Colombians in the race, pays a heavy price. Tour over for him. Incidentally, in third position in that intermediate sprint, it was Dylan Kennett collecting third place. As two of the riders caught behind the fall, drafting behind one of the cars and just having that classic old battle of who can get the closest and leave a little signature. Heading to the second of the intermediate sprints, there was a little bit of confusion for the St. George Continental Cycling team. The orange jersey of Dylan Kennett going just a fraction too soon. The lead out was perfect to the 200 metre to go mark. Unfortunately for Kennett, the other riders that were positioning themselves well towards the front, they didn't panic. They allowed Kennett to go early. The big Kiwi powers through to the pink marker, then the blue marker, thinking that's the finish, but that's just the indication points as to how far to go to the actual finish line. Valet sitting on the wheel, he waits patiently. Catafour behind him. Valet picks up the points. Catafour in second position. Turek in third. Kennett frustrated in fourth. In terms of what that does for the general classification, the big figure from Wanty Group Goubert, Boris Valet, he has now collected he's collected maximum points for the intermediate sprints, and he is now sitting at just 7 seconds down in the general classification. There's confirmation of the results from that intermediate sprint. And this is just making their way through the finish line for the first time as they're heading out towards to go to the climb. The race at one point was split into pieces with a leading group of 37 riders. The main part of the peloton has now rejoined, and we have a fresh breakaway of riders trying to get themselves off the fronts. It has been a drama-packed opening hour or so of racing in stage 2 of the Tour of Taihu Lake. Not a dull moment in the race so far. Significantly, amongst the early split, the entire Eritrean team missed the split, and they did a lot of the chasing to try and bring that leading group of 37 back. This is the finish line for the first time, but when they come through the second time, when it matters the most, they'll be heading back in the opposite direction. So as you can see, it's slightly downhill. So when they do come back through the finish line at the finish of the stage, they will be heading in the opposite direction. And as you can see from those images, it is slightly downhill coming towards the finish line. So it will make for a very quick sprint finish. St. George, once again, have got themselves firmly planted at the front of the peloton. And they're hedging their bets ever so slightly today. As we turn our attention now to the breakaway group, they've managed to move one of their riders, Ryan Kavanagh, into the move. This is Kavanagh, number 161 at the back of the group. And he certainly should not be, contributing to the pacemaking at the front. It's ideal for St. George to have Kavanagh in that breakaway because Kavanagh is well placed in the overall standings. He's just 21 seconds down, which has him sitting in 19th position overall. You can see the little hand signal there from one of the riders in the white colours from Jelly Belly, having a conversation with some of the riders from United Healthcare, asking the question, do you think we should go to the front and start doing some of the pacemaking? It is an impressive looking breakaway group. The rider who is best placed in overall classification in that leading group is Daniel Turik, who rides for the Israel Cycling Academy. And the rider from the Czech Republic, he featured in the second intermediate sprint. Here he is now, number 25. He finished in third position in that sprint. Also in the group is Osorio, who rides for the Manzana Postobon team. And Marco Manar has managed to make the move for Wanty Group Goubert, along with Ryan Kavanagh from St. George Continental Cycling Team. Given the terrain that we're making our way through and the cloud cover that we're experiencing, the pictures today are coming to you from 4G, which is very innovative, and it shows the strength of the technology here in China to be able to bring such quality pictures under such difficult circumstances environmentally for the helicopters, or the lack thereof. It's at the back of the peloton, number 64. This is Marcotte, the former American national champion. Tough start to the day for this team. You can see Marcotte has also been involved in a fall. This is the Jiangsu Tea Exhibition Park, and as you can well imagine, tea is very popular here in China, and it's not just picking tea for the purposes of selling tea, it's also become very common for tourists to come and pick tea as you might do at a strawberry farm or a raspberry farm. And the Maosham green tea is their most famous and best known tea variety. We rejoin the breakaway group. The rider that is also in here for the RTS team in the black colours now rolling through to the front, that is Bat Stanakan. He's one of the riders from Mongolia and rides with the UCI World Cycling Academy. 20-year-old who rode the World Championships this year, finishing in 52nd position in the under-23 individual time trial, the World Championships in Innsbruck, Austria. You can see the damage on the right-hand shoulder of Eric Marcotte. The good news for number 64, Eric Marcotte, is that he's a chiropractor, so he'll know how to get the body nice and straight afterwards. He's 38 years of age, Marcotte, and he has an extraordinary record as having won a Masters national title in the United States before winning the elite title. He was rather late to the sport, and Masters national title started from the extremely young age of 30 and above. He won a Masters title, used to be known as Veterans, but good spin doctor, and they changed the name to Masters. He won that title before in 2014 going to win the professional US National Road title. This is the perfect situation for the riders in the pink and black colours. St George, they do have Ryan Kavanagh in the breakaway group. He's not the best placed overall from that breakaway group, but it means that St George, they don't need to chase super hard trying to defend the orange jersey of Kennett's. This is Kavanagh sitting at the back of the group. Rightly so, not contributing to the pacemaking. 22-year-old from New South Wales, formerly a member of the New South Wales Institute of Sport. Rider rolling through to the front, number 74, that is Marco Menard, the Dutchman with the Wanty Group Goubert team. Just 45 kilometres to go. This leading group of 5 riders is really just 4 riders who are doing the pacemaking. Kavanagh spent a fair bit of time in his junior career racing the track, so he's got quite a bit of speed, Ryan Kavanagh, and I'm not sure what his climbing form is like at this end of the season. Marco Menard from Wanty Group Goubert, we know that he is a strong climber. Last year he went out the winner of the overall classification, the Tour of the Rhone Alps, and just based on the name of the race, you know that it does have plenty of climbing. And each of the key teams represented in this breakaway. Batchakan from the RTS team. He's the rider in the black and fluoro colours. The rider from Mongolia. Good to see the Mongolians making an appearance in the race this year. Number 34 takes a look across the shoulder. That's Juan Felipe Osorio. He did ride the Tour of Spain last year when the Manzana Postobon team got the wildcard invitation to that race. So he's got plenty of experience, despite the fact that he is still eligible for the Best Young Rider classification. He has ridden one of the biggest bike races in the world. Tough day for UHC. They've had 3 of their riders involved in crashes. This is the Venezuelan national champion at the back of the peloton, number 176. That's Ralph Monsalve. And he's also been in a fall today. And you can see, by the way, he's just nursing that left hand. He looked very ginger on the left shoulder as well. Prize for the toughest day so far, though, in terms of team's toughest days, goes without question to the United Healthcare squad. They've had Carlos Alzate abandon the race. It looked like a long list of injuries for the Colombian sprinter. Dan Eaton's been involved in the crash, so too has Eric Marcotte. Yesterday, that team was involved in everything. They got themselves into 3 breakaways. Most significantly, they were in the major breakaway of the day with Alex Cadafour. But today, they've had 3 riders crashed, and they've missed the breakaway group of 5, which is now out to an advantage of 1 minute and 15 seconds. And now we're seeing those blue colours of UHC start to come to the front. They're a team that needs to do the chasing. Velasquez, Hugo Angel Velasquez, is one of the riders coming to the front for UHC. They do have their lead rider in 3rd position in the overall classification, Cadafour, who's shown himself to have some good legs in the intermediate sprint so far. He won one of the intermediate sprints yesterday, finished 2nd in another, and so far today he's had 1 second place finish, which in terms of the general classification puts Alex Cadafour to just 3 seconds behind the orange jersey of Dylan Kennett. Now, this is an intriguing move. The rider now going through to the front in the black and pink colours is Ryan Kavanagh from St George. And in terms of the general classification, the rider in the blue and white colours, Daniel Turek, is now the virtual race leader. Kavanagh there once again. It looked as if he was explaining to Marco Menard that he's not going to be doing too much more of that pacemaking because his teammates are doing the chasing behind. But Marco Menard, the most experienced rider in this breakaway group, he is not going to accept any passengers. He's forcing Ryan Kavanagh to, even if he's not working at the front, to do a little bit of chasing to try and fatigue his legs before they hit the climb. And smart riding by Marco Menard. Tejbaya Batchakan is the rider wearing number 152, shaking the legs out, the young 20-year-old. What an opportunity for him to get himself into this breakaway. Throughout the stage yesterday, we rode predominantly on main roads as they went around the Taihu Lake. And today we're getting off the beaten track just a little bit more, and we go through to regional China. And it's nice to see the local culture, the locals on the side of the road watching the peloton make their way by. Likewise with the breakaway, as we see the split screen here with the conversation with Kavanagh and Menard at the front of the race. Meanwhile, on the right-hand side, you can see a little bit of negotiation as well between Kavanagh's teammates and a couple of riders in the blue colours from United Healthcare, trying to work out who does the chasing. The main responsibility to do the chasing back in the peloton rests on the shoulders of United Healthcare, the men in the blue colours. Whatever the conversation between Marco Menard and Ryan Kavanagh on the left-hand side of the screen of the breakaway group, it looks as if Marco Menard has had his way. Ryan Kavanagh appeared to be making the argument that he should sit in last position in this group because he won't be doing any of the pacemaking. Beautiful lake with the hills awaiting. And this indecision, the conversation that is happening in this group is no good to their long-term success. And this little dike, as they make their way across here, you can see those flags on the side of the road. It's a slight headwind, but going from the right-hand side to the left. And that's why number 25, Dan Chulik, is riding tight on the left-hand side of the road, as that reduces the amount of coverage that the men behind him actually receive. And with 161 Kavanagh playing the role of the passenger, Chulik is trying to force Kavanagh to do a little bit more work, even though he's sitting on the wheels of all the other riders in this breakaway group. Kavanagh, once again, negotiates his way to the back of the group. Meanwhile, this is his teammate, Morgan Smith, at the front of the peloton. Behind Smith is Hamish Shuruz, with a little bit of green tape on that left knee.
20 seconds.
Just thought there might have been a little bit more action back in that main group across that exposed piece of road, but still out in the breakaway, even though they have an advantage of 1 minute and 19 seconds, there's a lot of conversation happening. This is Tom Hubbard at the very rear end of the peloton. He looks as if he's just slipped back to the team car to collect a few instructions, perhaps, maybe a little bit more food as well and water for the rest of the riders. One of the key workhorses on this team. Meanwhile, his teammates are at the front, and it's Morgan Smith who is setting the tempo. Judging by the way the St. George team is chasing this breakaway group, they don't have a whole lot of confidence in Ryan Kavanagh to be able to contend with the riders he's in the breakaway with. Turik, Osorio and Menard certainly have stronger reputations than Ryan Kavanagh when it comes to this sort of terrain. The rider that you've seen third position in the pink colours, he looks a little uncomfortable. He's got the orange shoes on. That's Ben Dybel. He's the man who sits in second position in the overall classification. And Dybel is a very good climber. In fact, he would have been hoping that today's climb was a lot longer and a lot steeper than what it is. The 4 riders now at the front of this breakaway group, they need to ignore 161 Ryan Kavanagh. He will not do any of the pacemaking whilst his teammates are chasing. He is under firm instructions not to work with this group. Daniel Turik from the Israel Cycling Academy, off to the right-hand side in the blue and white colours. He's the best placed in the overall classification. Osorio from Manzano Postobon. He starts today at 26 seconds down in the general classification. Minar in the fluoro colours of Wanted Group Goubert is at 37 seconds down in the overall standings. Beshkahan is at 30 seconds riding for the RTS team. And Kavanagh started the day at 21 seconds behind his teammate, the race leader in orange, Dylan Kennett. Two of the big Americans coming towards the front for Jelly Belly. The rider with the black helmet on the right-hand side of the screen, that's Keegan Schwerbel. Caught the attention of Lance Armstrong when he was just 15 years of age. They rode a mountain bike race together, and this wasn't all that long ago, as Schwerbel's still just 23 years of age. And Schwerbel got the better of Lance Armstrong. He won the race ahead of Armstrong, and as a result of that, Schwerbel ended up on the Livestrong development squad, then spent some time with the BMC development team, now riding with Jelly Belly. This is Juan Felipe Osorio, a man who is a strong climber. Last year he was the winner of the King of the Mountains classification at the Volta Algarve. The Volta Algarve, a very important early season race in Portugal. A race that's been won in the past by the likes of Geraint Thomas, the winner of this year's Tour de France. I get the impression that today's stage is going to finish a long way ahead of schedule. They have really been moving along. The motorbike that was just plonking in front of the peloton, showing that board. That was not a chalkboard, but near enough, indicating what the time gap is between the leading group of 5 and the main peloton, as the breakaway now find themselves on the much anticipated climb. The images from today's stage, stage 2 of the Tour of Taihu Lake, coming to you courtesy of 4G, and the coverage, it just the occasional little bit of picture breakup, but really very high quality. This is Kavanagh at the back of the breakaway group once again. Now the fight for position at the front, as there will be riders dropped at the back of the peloton today, and they contenders for overall classification don't want to get caught behind traffic early. This is the Hengzhang cycling team now making their way through to the front. They performed well yesterday. Strong sprint finish from Zhang Zheng, who finished in 4th position on the stage yesterday. So they come into today's stage optimistic about their long-term chances. Back with the breakaway group, 36.5 kilometres to go. Their advantage now being reduced down to 1 minute and 1 second. Most of that has been through the fight at the front of the peloton to get a good position at the base of the climb. And for the St. George cycling team, they'll be happy to see other teams try and force their way to the front. As long as they protect both Dylan Kennett and Ben Dybel, they'll be very keen to see other teams do some of the pacemaking. The Luberjan Augusto team also making their way up towards the front. They were aggressive yesterday in lots of the breakaways, the riders in the black and yellow colours. This is the Hengzhang cycling team now trying to force a breakaway before they hit the climb. And the Gusto team closed down that little move off the front. We heard in the interview before the stage got underway with Ben Hill, who sits here in second position at the head of the peloton. He fractured a couple of vertebrae in a race in China some 12 months ago, so he's taken the glass half full approach, and he's just happy to be racing, let alone racing aggressively at the front of the peloton. Good signs for Hill. Ziga German slots into second position. Performed pretty well yesterday, Ziga German, finishing in 13th position. Life getting a little tough now down at the back of the peloton. Right that you see at the back of the group there, that is Olivier Behringer, a 22-year-old from Switzerland. Had a tough day in the opening prologue. He conceded more than a minute against the clock. But not the only man to do so. Also at a minute and 2 seconds behind was the defending champion, Jakub Mareczko. The tempo at the front causing plenty of damage at the back of the peloton. Ljubljana Gusto, the team now driving the tempo at the front of the peloton. Ziga German is the rider who is out of the saddle. A reaction coming. This time it's the Delco Marseille team trying to make their way off the front. Robin Meyer, the young Frenchman, opening up a slight advantage. Continuing to check the whereabouts of the rest of the group. Ding Village Vineyards, large producers of both fruit and vegetables, strawberries, grapes, their speciality, and it brings a smile to everyone's face. You can come here and pick the strawberries yourself, or just go to the market stall and pick them up from there. Celebrations at both the start and the finish line of today's stage, with the local customs being put on display for the riders of this year's Tour of Taihu Lake. A handy little advantage being opened up now. This is Remy Rocher, in fact, who's got himself off the front. Rocher, the best placed rider overall from the Delco Marseille team. He sits at just 19 seconds down in the general classification. And he's impressed this team throughout the past 12 months. He's just recently signed a 2-year contract with the squad. You get the impression pretty quickly that he's keen on some company off the fronts. Hasn't forced a reaction just as yet, though. For a rider who throughout these stint in the amateur ranks, the under-23 category, built his reputation more so as a climber, he certainly sprinted pretty well yesterday. He wasn't too far off the mark, finishing just outside the top 10 on the stage yesterday. And the difficult tour continues for number 84. This is a man who's won 15 stages. He's won the race twice overall. Going out the back door is Mareczko. This is Tim Guy, number 121, also under pressure on the climb. And I think it's fair to say that very early on in the piece, we can put a mark through the name of Jakub Mareczko of being able to win this race overall. That was Ribeiro of the Burgos BH team, also being distanced. This is going out the back, one of the riders from the Eritrean team. That's Habdi Michael, who was in the breakaway yesterday and rode really strongly yesterday. Daniel Habdi Michael paying the price for a long time off the fronts in the break yesterday. This is Para in the pink colours of the Manzana Postobon team. The big Ukrainian national champion, also under pressure. Polivoda, who was involved in a crash on the stage yesterday, so that could very well be catching up with him. But just based on the size of him, Polivoda will not like this climb at all. Here he is, Alexander Polivedo. He's making his way around a few riders, but there's some big splits in front of him. Also at the back of this group is Gabriel Pons for the Burgos BH team. This is Robin Meyer at the rear of the group in the blue colours of Dalco Marseille. A process of elimination for some of the riders that we know won't be in contention at the end of the stage. And as highlights the depth of the peloton, some of the bigger teams represented at the back and being distanced. This is Remy Rocher, still on his own, stuck in the middle between that breakaway group of 5 and the main peloton. A few of the riders at the rear of the group just trying to make the most of the descent to rejoin the main field. This is Rocher, and it looked like just around the corner from him we could just about pick up the jersey of Ryan Kavanagh. Apologies for the little bit of the picture breakup. We're bringing you images today predominantly courtesy of 4G. In fact, these are the pink colours of Juan Felipe Osorio. So that is at the front of the race. This is at the rear end of the field. It's been a difficult day for Jacob Moretzko, the fluoro colours of the Willia Trestina team. Here comes the young Frenchman, the 22-year-old Rocher. Has now made it across to Juan Felipe Osorio. And he'll be pleased with the company that he's about to receive. Rocher will just take a moment to sit on the wheel of Osorio, get his breath back ever so slightly, then these two can start to work together. Osorio looks across the shoulder. Rocher happy to work with him now. Chasing group. There's still 4 leaders out in front, including Kavanagh, Marco Minar. Also up there is Batchakan from the RTS team and Turik from Israel Cycling Academy. You can just see the vehicles following them in the distance. You're curious to know exactly what happened with Osorio on that climb to be distanced from that leading group. Well, you wouldn't classify him as climbing being a major weakness. He's certainly not noted as a significant sprinter. And he has been the winner of the King of the Mountains classification last year in the Volta Algarve. Made contact with one of the current riders for the Dalco Marseille team to get a little bit of the inside running on the riders that are here in China for this race. And as for Remy Rocher, he said he hasn't met him as yet, but the Raps within the team are very big on the young Frenchman. They've impressed with what they've seen from him over the past 12 months. .29 kilometres remaining. This is Alex Turin in the fluoro colours at the back of the peloton. Number 202, that is Choi from Hong Kong, China. They have the red jersey for the leader of the Chinese classification, that is Liao, who has been very helpful throughout the race, it must be said. He's assisted with quite a few of the translations between the Chinese journalists and the predominantly English-speaking riders from the European teams who are here. Osorio and Rocher making their way to the front of the race. Strong reinforcements to have the Frenchman up here. Number 16, He started the day at just 19 seconds down in the general classification. And still, as we look forward, you can see that Kavanagh remains at the back of the group and is not contributing to the pacemaking. A few spots of rain starting to appear on the camera lens. There is the orange jersey also at the back of the group. That's bad news for Dylan Kennett. He is still in contact with the peloton, but he will have started that climb at the front, slowly drifted to the back. So he went up the climb slightly slower than the riders at the front of the peloton managed to do so. He was clearly under a fair bit of pressure, but at least he is still in contact. This is the finished line as they'll be making their way from the top of the screen, slightly downhill over the last couple of 100 metres. And it was on this corresponding stage last year, where it was the last stage of the race, where Mareczko was just dropped at the top of that final climb. He made the most of the last 15 kilometres to get to the finished line with the support of his teammates to be able to rejoin what was then a leading group of only around about 17 riders. And then Mareczko, as he so often has done in this race, he won the stage and he clinched the general classification for the second time. It looks as if the Italian may well struggle to do so in 2017. These are some of the statue dragons here at the finish line. We saw the dragon dancers at the start of the stage today, and we saw lots of other traditional Chinese dancing as well. As for Mareczko, we saw him dropped earlier on the first ascent of today's major climb. His teammate, Turin, was slipping down towards the back of the peloton to see whether Mareczko might be within striking distance to rejoin the race, just as he did 12 months ago. This is the school of Taoism, which teaches calligraphy, traditional Chinese teachings, local craftsmen, performers, and opera singers as well. It is also, as you can well imagine, a very popular tourist destination. Taoism has a huge influence on the culture here in China. Here's a look back at what has happened so far. Stage 2, there have been plenty of highlights. The gun going to get the race underway. The leaders of the various classifications all at the front of the peloton as they rolled out from the start line in Giron. The orange jersey sitting on the shoulders of Dylan Kennett for the second day. Defended himself yesterday very well in the circuit race, finishing in Binhu yesterday. The Manzana Postobon team, they were the first to launch an attack on today's stage. It did catch the attention of a few, but more significantly, as they made a tight left-hand turn, the leader of the Best Young Rider classification, Cormac McGough, number 103, was involved in a crash, along with his teammate Keegan Swerble. And just to highlight the tension at the front of the race, a battle for positions at the head of the peloton. A fall involving one of the riders from the Hainan Jilun team. He has managed to rejoin the race, but unfortunately for that squad yesterday, they lost 2 of their riders in a heavy fall. Then on to the intermediate sprints. Avila for the Israel Cycling Academy coming shoulder to shoulder with Alzate, and Alzate falling heavily. Valet it was from Wanty Group Goubert who picked up the time bonus and the points in the race for the green jersey. Edwin Avila was in second position. It was then Dylan Kennett in third place. But unfortunately for Carlos Alzate, unable to continue. It was that one extra pedal stroke, the right pedal just clipping the gutter, catapulting him over the top of the handlebars. Avila disappointed, but not as disappointed or sore as Alzate. And in fairness to Avila, he didn't really go off his line all that much. Carlos Alzate took a big risk going up the inside. A few of the riders caught behind the fall, daring to touch the bumper bar of one of the race cars as they make the most of the convoy and slipstream their way back to the field. Then into the second of the intermediate sprints, Dylan Kennett, a rush of blood. He sprinted for one of the key markers with still a few hundred metres to go. Boris Vallet made the most of it. The Belgian stayed calm under the pressure. He waited for his moment to open up the sprints, and then he cleared out to win the second of the intermediate sprints, backing up from taking the first one. It was Catafor in second spot. Zurich, it was in third position. What that has done to the general classification, it has moved Boris Vallet from starting the day at 12 seconds behind. He's now just 7 seconds behind. And he collects another 5 points in the race for the green jersey, which isn't enough to move him into the lead of that classification. 14 points in the race for the green jersey if you win the stage. And the man who won yesterday's stage, Juan Sebastian Molano, is currently the leader of that classification wearing the green jersey. Breakaway group of 5 then formed as they approached the finish line for the first time. Number 25, Daniel Turek from the Israel Cycling Academy. He's the best placed rider in the general classification from this breakaway group. Starting the stage just 12 seconds behind the race leader, Kennett. Kennett has his teammate Ryan Kavanagh in the breakaway. He's at 21 seconds down. On the lowest slopes of the climb, Remy Rocher from the Delco Marseille Provence KTM team was the first to launch a serious attack, opening up a gap on the main peloton as Marechko, the defending champion, conceding more ground. Tim Guy with him, number 121 in the black and yellow colours, struggling on the climb as well. But no such difficulties for Rocher, making his way across to the leading group. The leading group now just about being reeled back in by the peloton. 23 kilometres remaining. We're back live with stage 2 of the Tour of Taihu Lake. And you can see Kavanagh in the pink and black colours almost apologising to Turek. Just letting him know, you understand, I couldn't work with this group. My teammate's in the orange jerseys, the overall race leader. And my team has been doing the chasing. So just as we get a chance to take a look at the riders in the breakaway, as Osorio in the pink colours has only just returned to this group. They've been reeled back in by the main field. The man at the front of the peloton is Maciek Grozzel from the Ljubljana Gusto team. He was the rider who was in the breakaway on yesterday's stage. Maciek is the rider in the black colours from RTS. One of a handful of riders from Mongolia in the race this year. Good to see him making it into the breakaway. A few spots of rain, but nothing of any great concern. The cloud cover, however, has prevented us from being able to put the chopper up for today's stage. So the image is coming to you predominantly courtesy of 4G. And this is a smart move. The big figure that you see in the white colours now coming to the front, that is Polivoda, Alexander Polivoda. He sits at more than 4 minutes and 40 seconds down the overall standing, but he is a good sprinter. He was dropped on the climb the previous time through, so this is a chance for him to get a head start, and then likely to be caught by the peloton, but keep himself in contention to be able to hold on for the sprint finish. Grimace at the front with the Israel Cycling Academy. They've been well represented in the breakaway throughout today's stage, courtesy of Daniel Turek. And the shorter of the two riders from that team that you can now see at the front, that's Edwin Avila. He was the rider that was involved in the tangle up earlier on at the first of the intermediate sprints when Carlos Alzate unfortunately had to abandon the race. And Avila, smartly as well, making sure that he is near the front of the peloton, right at the base of the next descent of this climb. And we've already seen Rocher off the front for Delco Marseille. This is Robin Mayer this time that comes through to the front. Polivoda is doing very well. The big figure in the white colours, the Ukrainian national champion. Super aggressive approach from the Delco Marseille team. Rocher having just been caught. He bridged across to the leading group of 5, made it 6, and not a couple of minutes later, he was reeled back in by the main field. This is causing a bit of a reaction further behind. The bearded figure from the Israel Cycling Academy, that's Nathan Earl, who starts to try and get the chasing going. And behind him is another one of the riders from the St. George cycling team, and that is none other than Ben Dybel, who sits in second place in the overall classifications and is hoping to make this climb the second time around as difficult as possible for all the sprinters in the race. Quick check across the shoulder, see if anybody wants to join him. It was a bold move earlier on by Remy Rocher, who did manage to open up an advantage of around about 30 seconds on the main peloton before getting reeled back in. Down at the back of the race. Just saw the socks there of Sirek Tisfon from the Eritrean team. A team that performed really well yesterday with 2 riders inside the top 10 on the stage. Direction now coming from the peloton with Wanty Group Goubert trying to do the chasing as they approach the base of the climb. Peloton now found out across the road. The challenge for the teams with the sprinters is to try and slow the pace down on the climb as much as possible so their fast men can still stay in contact, as a few of the local police officers might have just caught themselves on the big screen. They do a wonderful job of keeping the roads safe and also not just protecting the riders on the race, the spectators and everybody else who works on the race as well. Life is tough at the back of the peloton. This is Feng Xiao, who's at the rear of the group, just trying to stay in contact. This time through, Remy Rocher not able to open up an advantage, paying the price for the previous attack. Not quite as aggressive as I had have anticipated from the rest of the peloton, however. Ben Dybel spoke before the stage got underway and was certainly hoping to make the climb as difficult as he possibly could. Life is tough at the back, though, for Alvaro Robredo, right in the white colours from the Burgos BH team, in his 5th season with that squad. Also at the back, this is Itamar Einhorn, the one Israeli rider riding for the Israeli Cycling Academy team. He's in his 2nd stint as a stagiaire with this team. Fights his way over the top of the climb. He's a reasonably quick sprinter, so he'll be hoping to stay in contact and support, play a lead-out role perhaps for Edwin Avila. Now the gap is starting to open up with just inside 19 kilometres remaining. Chance to take on some fluids before the challenge of the approach through to the finish line. Being solo, it is almost impossible to hold off the peloton. The teams of the sprinters will quickly get themselves organised. So just one rider off the front, Remy Rocher, having gone in the breakaway earlier on. Malshan is the origin of the Shuangqin school of Taoism. Liaozhu statue reflects the huge impact Taoism teaching has on Chinese philosophy. Not only the locals, regular visitors here, so too tourists from all around the world absorbing the statue, and so too the Taoism philosophy. Anxious anticipation at the finish line with just on 18.2 kilometres remaining. At the back of the race, just surviving, staying in contact, that is Wang at the rear of the group for the Qinghai team. So too at the back of the group for the Eritrean squad, that is Michael Habton. They sprinted well yesterday, the Eritreans. They had Debesay and Tesvazion both finish inside the top 10 on the stage. This is a much bigger group than anticipated. I was expecting the race to split up a lot more than this. The terrain has been fairly difficult and the racing has been incredibly fast. And now's the road. Starts to kick upwards. 1-2-1. Tim Guy with the ponytail. He's finding the going a little bit too tough. So too is Robredo. Right on cue as the climb starts. The peloton begins to splinter. So too number 23, Itamar Einhorn. His surname, he told me, translates as unicorn. Hasn't quite got his climbing legs packed, however. Finding the going a fraction tough. No teammates waiting back here for him. The rest of his teammates, they will be supporting Edwin Avila. And the race officials pretty quickly making their way past these riders who have been dropped. Still an opportunity for these riders to get themselves into the convoy, survive over the top of the climb, and then rejoin the main group. We saw a lot of riders manage to do so after the climb the previous time. Coming to a grinding halt, number 84, Marechko, second time round, is being distanced. So too is Meng Yan from the Hingjian cycling team. Jelly Belly rider being dropped. And on that occasion, it looked as if it was Taylor Sheldon, the man who was in the breakaway yesterday. Number 173, this is Wang, his fourth season with the team. Alex Turin, number 83, looks like he's been distanced as well. He'll be quickly back to keep company with their sprinter. This is Amador now in the pink colours. Also under a fair bit of pressure. This is Ziga German, number 123. He's the sprinter for the team in the black and yellow colours. Ljubljana Gusto, they'll be disappointed to hear that Ziga German is being dropped. And that is a clear indication as to the ferocity of the tempo at the front end of the peloton. Sandbayer is the rider in the black colours, now also under a lot of pressure. You can see more riders in the black and yellow colours down towards the rear of the group. I get the impression that they're looking for Ziga German, waiting for him in the hope that they can support him to be able to rejoin the main peloton. Number 124, that is Gruzelj, who was in the breakaway yesterday. And when he was in the break yesterday, he was really strong on the flat roads. And he, in fact, won the second of the intermediate sprints. This climb is proving tough. Wesley Creeder, the rider in the blue and fluoro yellow colours from Wanty Group Goubert. He's had 3 wins throughout his career. He's got a contract with that squad for the next 2 seasons as well. Also slipping back, that's Mark McNally, number 73. And Kennett, this is the story of the day. Kennett's, the team were concerned about his ability to defend himself on this climb, and so much so that they haven't put riders back to support him. The Kiwi is trying to do it by himself. Meanwhile, his teammate Dybel will be doing all the damage at the front. You can see the determination of Kennett. There's plenty of stepping stones just in front of him. There's still opportunities for him to be able to rejoin the front of the race. This is the crucial day for Kennett. If he can just survive a little bit longer. There might be a few in this group who are prepared to work with him. Kevin Van Malsen also at the back of this group. It's a reasonable size group, so there's still a hope for Kennett. And peace out at the finish line as they await the arrival of the peloton, which is splintering under the pressure of the climb. Now that is a happy face. And there's lots to be happy about with some of the world's best cyclists on their way towards the finish line in Malshan. The orange jersey of Dylan Kennett may not be at the front when they get there. This is a look back at the first descent with 34 kilometres to go when Remy Rocher was the rider that launched a bold attack. Rocher rode so impressively, he managed to get across to what was a leading group of 5. He joined up pretty quickly with Osorio, the Colombian from the Manzana Postobon team. Those two worked together once they were onto the flat stretch as Marechko was going out the back door for the first time. He's done that again the second time up the climb. We've seen him return. Can he return twice? Worth noting 101 as well. That is the sprinter Castillo from the Jelly Belly team. Rocher climbed brilliantly on the first descent. Kept on looking across the shoulder, hoping for a few wheels to be able to sit. But none came across. He bridged to the front instead. Unfortunately for the 22-year-old Frenchman, once he did get across to the leaders, he was pretty quickly reeled back in by the main peloton. This was Rocher just a little while ago, getting across to Osorio. Juan Felipe Osorio, the 23-year-old, who last year he made his first appearance in one of the big Grand Tours, riding the Volta a España. And he was a rider that we saw in quite a few breakaways throughout that race. And just as Rocher and Osorio rejoined the lead group, the peloton closed them down. That was with some 22.7 kilometres left to race. They then made their way through to the base of the climb for the second time, where the race has been splitting up. And we are back with live pictures. 13.7 kilometres remaining. Delico Marseille once again forcing the issue at the front of the race. And on this occasion, it looks like the big Italian Filosi, who is getting himself off the front. Just a small gap being opened up. And again, the Delico Marseille team showing themselves as being the most aggressive. We've seen a lot of attacking from the young Frenchman, Remy Rocher. It is Filosi now, the Italian, by the looks of it, who is trying to get himself off the front. Meanwhile, at the back of the race, the chase is on. Number 82, this is Giuseppe Fonzi. With him, number 64 in the blue colours. That's the former American national champion, Eric Marcotte, as Fonzi is asking the question, are we working together? Number 4 is a notable rider in this group. That's Danny Lopez, who was third on the stage yesterday. So the key sprinters are being distanced. Now the Colombians are chasing because they've got yesterday's stage winner, the green jersey, Milano, in this group. And a dog just scurrying across the road that always makes a bike rider nervous. The rider that sits in 4th position in the blue colours, that's Angel Madrazo, the Spanish rider for the Delico Marseille team. He's protecting his teammate who was just slipping off the front a few moments ago. Ben Hill is certainly still in this group, just spotted the black and yellow colours of the Australian. And that was just a brief image of Filosi at the front of the race for Delico Marseille. And that is why his teammate, Madrazo, is playing that defensive role, sitting in 4th position in the peloton. Number 21, that is Edwin Avila, a very quick Colombian sprinter. A little bit of a regrouping. This is the challenge of having the climb topping out with around about 14 kilometres still to race. It's a chance for the blue jersey of the best young rider to be able to rejoin. Cormac McGough is making his way across. Marcotte, number 64, just sitting the wheels. this group working well together. The blue jersey, McGough, he's had a day full of stories. He's been on the deck and now he's chasing. Back at the finish line, the anticipation waiting for the arrival of the race with 11.3 kilometres to go. Nice moment for that young kid on Dad's shoulders to get a spot on the big screen. It's been good to see quite strong crowds throughout this year's Tour of Taihu Lake. There was plenty certainly at the opening prologue, likewise at the finish of yesterday's stage. This is at the head of the race with Veloci, the 26-year-old Italian. And he still has a handy advantage. He was the winner 2 years ago of the Grand Prix Lugano. That's the opening race of the season in Switzerland. Now the men in the pink colours of Manzana Postobon doing the chasing for the rider in green. Yesterday's stage winner, Molano. Madrazo is the next rider in line in the blue colours. He rides for Delco Marseille, one of the teammates of Veloci. The effort is really starting to tell on the body language of Veloci. You can always tell by how much the shoulders are rocking and rolling that he is close to threshold. It is just a sub-maximal effort here from Veloci. Turning this into an individual time trial, 10.6 kilometres remaining for the Italian. You would make the argument that the Delco Marseille team, they're the fourth biggest team in this year's race. Manzana Postobon still at the front, still doing the chasing. Eritreans holding on at the back of the race. They've been making a huge impact on world cycling over the past 5 years. Same can certainly be said for the Colombians. They've got sprinters, they've got climbers, they've got contenders for the general classification in the world's biggest races. And Veloci is riding well. This is a moment for him to be able to recuperate ever so slightly. He's must be touching speeds of 70 plus kilometres per hour. He's in the tuck position. The biggest gear ratio that we'd have is a 53 tooth chainring at the front, an 11 sprocket at the back, and unable to really hit the pedals without spinning out. This is a look at the finish line once again, and as you can see, they approach from the top of the screen, and it's ever so slightly downhill. The leader's jersey is orange, the points classification green, the blue for the best young rider, the red jersey for the leading Chinese rider. And the head bobble of Veloci at the front of the race tells the story of the fatigue that is starting to build for the Italian. Little bit of dirt on the side of the road there, but he managed to negotiate that right-hand turn safely, just inside the last 10 kilometres. Taoism puts huge emphasis on astrology, which is why many of the Taoism temples are built at the top of many of the big mountains in this area. There's also the Baohu Mountain, which is the main Buddhist temple of the region, and the two philosophies live closely together in great harmony. Just inside the last 9.4 kilometres. Stage 2 of the Tour of Taihu Lake, and this at the front of the race is the Italian Uri Veloci, who's been off the front on his own for the past 6 or 7 Ks, making a good fist of it. The rider in the blue colours, Madrazo, sitting there in third position, doing all he can to disrupt the chase from the Manzana Postobon team. They're doing the pacemaking for Milano. At the back of the group, the blue jersey, the leader of the best young rider classification. This is McGough, who has managed to return. It's been a good ride by McGough to be able to rejoin that group. He had Ben Wolf with him as well, doing a lot of the pacemaking. Great sacrifice by Wolf. He's well placed himself in the overall standings, just 8 seconds behind, sits in 5th position, but still prepared to protect McGough in his battle to hold on to the blue jersey of the best young rider. You can see the fluoro colours of the Willia Trestina team just on the left-hand side of the screen. Jacopo Mosca is still in this group for that squad. That's a good sign. He's a pretty quick finisher. He was solid on the stage yesterday, and Mareczko has certainly spoken highly about him. Looking for the shortest road home. When Filosi was the winner of the Grand Prix Lugano in 2016, he managed to do it with a bold move like this, just inside the last 10 kilometres. So it's a common strategy for the 26-year-old. And unfortunately for Filosi, roads like this give the chasers hope they'll be able to see a long way out in front, and this is not particularly steep to be going into the tuck position. That's an indication that the legs are full of acid and he is running out of fuel tickets to be able to spend. And based on the fact that the chasing group have just gone across that bridge and there are no vehicles between Filosi and the peloton, the advantage can't be much more than 10 seconds. And the rest of the riders in this group just sitting patiently behind the men from Manzana Postobon, letting them do all the pacemaking and waiting to pounce. Manzana Postobon did exactly the same yesterday. We didn't see them at the front throughout the stage. They waited and waited, and then when it came time to crunch, they got themselves to the front and they delivered Molano to perfection. Sergio Huita is the rider at the front, doing a lot of the pacemaking now. They've ridden well strategically today, Manzana Postobon. They had Juan Felipe Osorio in the breakaway throughout the stage, so that prevented them from having to do any of the work. But now that everybody knows they've got one of the stage favourites, they're prepared to take full responsibility at the front. And if Molano can keep on winning stages, just as we've seen Mareczko do in the past, he's still a chance to challenge for the final orange jersey. He started the day 40 seconds behind Dylan Kennett, but Kennett, he's already been distanced from this group. So that puts Molano within 37 seconds of the race lead, as the leader on the road now is Ben Dybel, who started the day in second position overall. Filosi, the Italian, who's off the front on his own. He started the stage 35 seconds down in the general classification in the race for overall honours. The Jelly Belly riders just stretching the legs, the white colours that you can see on the left-hand side of the screen. That's big Keegan Swerble, who has had quite a story so far in today's stage. He's been involved in one fall. He's rejoined the main group. And he's not a natural sprinter, but he's certainly not slow. You can see the blue figures on the left, the dark blue, that is Marcotte. And you can also see his shoulder. Eric Marcotte, the 38-year-old, the oldest rider in the race. He's one of the many riders who has hit the deck throughout the stage, but is showing just how tough he is. He's still in contention. So too at the back of the group, this looks like it is Techkov at the rear. It is, as they gaze forward over the top of what is left of the main peloton. Filosi a few times has looked as if the fatigue is getting the better of him, but the Italian is proving very difficult to be able to reel back in. This is a defiant performance by Filosi. It hasn't been pretty, but it's not about style. It's about being quick, and so far he's fast, but that is always a bad sign. When you are looking across the shoulder inside the last 5Ks, it's a hint that he's starting to doubt himself. He's worried about being caught, and rightly so. After the stage yesterday, we heard from a few of the riders in the breakaway. They thought that they just might have been an outside chance to be able to survive 20 kilometres from the finish line, but the sprinters then got on the front and they reeled them back in. Filosi not raising the white flag, however. The Israel Cycling Academy team, they've got themselves just sitting around about 10th position or so. A couple of riders from that team. Edwin Avila, their sprinter, is certainly in there amongst them. And they'll be waiting as long as they possibly can. They'll let Manzana Postobon do all of this pacemaking. That will spend a lot of their resources and blunten their speed to be able to do the lead out for Molano. But before any of that happens, They need to reel in the defiant Velosi. Another look over the shoulder. Surely he can't survive for too much longer. His teammates are most definitely hoping that he does. And now it is just about all over. There aren't too many riders left in that main group. I would hasten to estimate a group of around about 35 riders. And the peering across the shoulder for Velosi is becoming more regular now. And with the way he just crested that little hill, I thought he was about to surrender, but not the case for Velosi. Still holding on to an advantage of just on around about 4 seconds, maybe even less than that now, as the pink colours of Manzano Postobon are breathing down his neck. They've ridden well throughout their stint this year in China. Sergio Huita, who's been doing a lot of the chasing today, he was the winner of the King of the Mountains classification at the Tour of China. And Milano, who won the stage yesterday and wears the green jersey today, he was the winner of the Tour of China 1 overall. So it has been a happy hunting ground. From here on through to the finish, it's not complicated at all. It's pretty much a straight approach to the finish line, which for the leader on the road, Velosi, is bad news, unfortunately, for him. Mal Shun hosting the stage finish today. The negotiation now is happening with the other riders in this group that still have sprinters in contention. Lopez has managed to make it back into this group as Velosi is just about to be caught. The riders in the white colours on the right-hand side of the screen with the red bikes, that's the Burgos BH team. They're one of the biggest teams in the race. They've recently just ridden the Vuelta a España. They had 3rd place yesterday with Dani Lopez. He was dropped on the climb. He's managed to rejoin and he's got himself in with a chance. He's the rider at the back of that train with the little bit of stubble. This is Keegan Swerble now who comes to the front. He's got the black helmet on, the American with the red shoes. And looking to line up the sprint, it's Wolf for that team that sits in 4th spot. He's now slotting himself into 5th position, but Milano's not so keen on letting him come through. This is Taylor Sheldon, the man who we saw in the breakaway yesterday. He's now setting the tempo, followed by Swerble. And the big figure of Wolf is waiting patiently. But given how big Wolf is, it's good news for Milano as he gets a huge drafting advantage by sitting behind the American. Swerble once again at the front. Checks across the shoulder for his sprinter. Also coming through to the front of the race. Good to see the Novo Nordisk team represented. Marcotte, despite the damage in the big fall, he's also fighting for a spot at the front. Not intimidated at all. Boris Valet is doing a little bit of rubbing of the shoulders. The rider in the fluoro yellow colours and the blue. He's looking to try and get in onto the wheel of Dani Lopez. This is Ben Hill now who opens up early, hoping to catch everybody by surprise. A little look underneath the legs. Checking on the whereabouts of everybody else. It's Nathan Earl who's the first to respond to try and do the chasing. Meanwhile, slipping down towards the back, number 162, that's Ben Dybel. Ben Dybel is in a position potentially to move into the race lead. It will depend on time bonuses. Hill still at the front, less than 1 kilometre left to race. It's Burgos BH at the front of the peloton now trying to do the lead out for Lopez. Hill with just a slight advantage. So aggressive this year, Hill, throughout the Tour of Slovenia, where the team is registered 500 metres. Hill may well have got the timing right. The speed now starting to wind up back in the main group. Lopez is waiting for his moment to pounce. Hill is still holding on. They are breathing down his neck. Touching speeds now of upwards of 70 kilometres per hour. Wanty Group Goubert, they're not in it. Hill still holding. The sprint has started behind. Has Hill managed to get the timing right? Hill is hoping so. He looks to the left. He gets swamped. It looks like it may well have been Valet just ahead of Milano as Hill misses out by just a fraction. This is the group with Kennett now in the orange jersey. They're at 300 metres to go. So Dylan Kennett will be losing the race lead. And depending on the exact stage results, it could very well go across to Boris Valet or Ben Dybel, the teammate of Kennett, will wait for confirmation from the stage results. It certainly looked like it was Milano across the line first, with Valet in second position, then Martinez in third. Hill got swamped on the line and might find himself finishing just inside the top 10. With Boris Valet in second position on the stage, that will give him a 6-second time bonus. He started the day at 12 seconds behind, but he won 2 of the intermediate sprints as well. Ben Dybel started the day at 3 seconds behind. I think Boris Valet will move into the race lead by just a couple of seconds ahead of Ben Dybel. The time bonus is proving all important. And the Wanty Group Goubert team debriefing. They should be pleased with the day. Here's another look at the sprint finish. Hill on the left, just getting swamped in the last 50 metres. The green jersey through the centre is Milano, who just gets there ahead of Valet on the right, and then Martinez on the left-hand side of the screen. Two in a row for the Colombian sprinter. It is the magnificent Milano who is dominating the sprint finishes. Ben Hill, what disappointment. This is Bourglas in the white colours, the man who finished second on the stage yesterday. An impressive performance on the stage today by Ben Hill to make that bold move to try and go off the front, but it didn't quite work out for him. Now for the riders in the race, it's time for them to get back to their teammates, back towards their team tent and debrief on the stage that was. And it was a dramatic stage. Quite a few crashes at the start of the day. Unfortunately, Carlos Alzate is out of the race, having been involved in a heavy fall in the first of the intermediate sprints. We saw Eric Marcotte, the former American national champion, also crash. Took a bit of skin off his right shoulder, but appears to be okay. He was certainly involved in that sprint finish. Unfortunately for the Kiwi, Dylan Kennett, he came across the line in 57th position at 39 seconds off the pace, so he is no longer the race leader. But celebration for Boris Valet, who moves into the orange jersey as the new leader of the general classification. And there he is with all his teammates around him. The riders from the Hong Kong cycling team in the blue, with the red jersey being worn by Liu, leader of the Chinese classification. He has been riding well. He managed to defend his position now in that lead group. He finished in 16th position on the stage. So he will remain at the top of the classification in the race for the red jersey. That is a very good outcome. No doubt that will bring a big smile to his face. Here's the winner of the stage, number 33, and extending his lead in the race for the green jersey, Juan Sebastian Milano. Makes it 2 in a row. This is the Delco Marseille team in the blue colours. They performed well today. Yannick Martinez coming towards the back end of his career, finishing in 3rd position. No need for a chaperone to guide Milano to the stage podium. He knows exactly where he's required. He's had lots of success in China in 2018. That 10-second time bonus as well moves him a little bit closer to the orange jersey. If he keeps up this pattern, he could very well challenge for the general classification at the end of the race. Riders in the blue and fluoro yellow colours, they're the riders from Wanty Group Goubert. Their team leader, Boris Verlet, finished in second position on the stage, and with the time bonuses has done enough to move into the overall race lead. So we'll see plenty of these riders at the front of the peloton tomorrow. Sport is ever important here in China. They've got plenty of marathons, triathlons as well. Wine growing or production is ever increasing, and they also capture their great heritage to show it to the rest of the world and to show it to the next generations. This is a look back at the stage finish where we've just seen Milano collect the stage victory. Confirmation, Juan Sebastian Milano winning the stage ahead of Boris Verlet. It was then Yannick Martinez in third position. Emilio Cima was in fourth place. It was Edwin Avila rounding out the top five, followed by Lopez Liu Hill getting caught at the finish and finishing in eighth position. It was then Williams in ninth, and Fonzi it was in 10th position. Giuseppe Fonzi also potentially winning the title of the best name in this year's Tour of Taihu Lake. The general classification, it is Boris Verlet who moves into the race lead a mere 3 seconds ahead of Ben Dybel. It's then Alex Cadafor in third place, also 3 seconds behind, followed by Techkov at 7 seconds. Turek then rounds out the top five at 11 seconds behind. It's then Williams, Sheldon, Wolf, Avila and Marcotte inside the top 10. And with the pattern of this race so far, with the general classification so tight, it's still anyone's race. The time bonuses will prove all important, and we've seen how aggressively they've been raced for the intermediate time bonuses. 10 seconds for the stage win as well. It is a lot of decisions still to be made. Juan Sebastian Milano, he leads the race for the green jersey. He's 6 points clear of Boris Verlet. It's then Lopez in third spot, followed by Bourglas, the Greek rider who finished in second position on the stage yesterday. Got a little bit frustrated on the stage today. Cadafor it is who's in fifth place, followed by the consistent Martinez, then Avila, followed by Cima, Zhang and Gruzjal in 10th spots. Fitting that the green jersey is sitting on the shoulders of Milano. Thus far, he has been proven to be the fastest in this race. Roche with the blue jersey now as the leader of the best young rider classification ahead of Schwerbel. It was then Cima, followed by Fuentes. And good to see the Mongolians featuring in the race today with Batshkhan in fifth position. And the red jersey for the best Chinese rider. Hotly contested classification, this one, with more than 30 riders in that competition. The man who wore the red jersey at the start of the stage today, Liao, from the Hong Kong team, finished in 16th position on the stage. So that is a strong performance. Look back at what was a dramatic stage two. It got underway with the firing of the gun, and the Manzana Postobon team making their intentions felt very early, launching the first attack of the day. Didn't take long before we saw the first fall either. The man in the blue jersey going down was the leader of the best young rider classification. Cormac McGough also involved in that fall was Daniel Eaton from United Healthcare. The St. George team tried to control things at the front as the tension was felt between Manzana Postobon in pink and UHC in blue. A fall for one of the riders from Hainan Jilun. Managed to rejoin the race, but then on to the first intermediate sprint and the first serious fall of the day. This was Alzate going down heavily. Moving up the inside of Edwin Avila, clipping his right pedal onto the gutter, and he was catapulted over the top of the handlebars. Valet collecting the time bonus ahead of Avila, followed then by Kennett. As Carlos Alzate, his tour coming to a premature end, but significantly, The winner of the intermediate sprint, it proved all important. Boris Valet winning the sprint, getting 5 points in the race for the green jersey, but 3-second time bonus. And for Elizate, that will hurt for a long time to come. Two of the riders caught up behind the fall, having a chase in amongst the convoy, getting as close as they possibly could to one of the cars they were following. That is a slipstream. On to the second intermediate sprint, and Dylan Kennett, the race leader, got a little bit confused with some of the markings. The other riders, however, didn't. Boris Valet just behind him in the blue and yellow colours. More experience, more patience. He just waited another moment. Kennett was done. Valet made his move, and it was then Valet collecting the points again in the race for green and another 3-second time bonus. Katafor it was in second position, Turek in third spot. So 6 seconds worth of time bonuses earlier in the stage for Boris Valet. He also managed to sprint well at the end. More time bonuses with second on the stage. We'll look at that in just a few moments. Once they got onto the climb for the first time, there was already a breakaway group of 5 established, and the young Frenchman Remy Rocher, he launched an attack to try and get away from the peloton, distance himself from the sprinters, and perhaps make life just a little bit difficult for everyone. He managed to do so as Marechko, the 15-time stage winner in this race, was one of the first victims of the tempo being set at the front by Remy Rocher. The Frenchman in blue then made it across to Osorio in the pink colours from the Manzan Postobon team. They rejoined the breakaway group, made it 6 out in front, but that didn't last for too long. Just as Rocher and Osorio made contact with the leaders, the peloton closed things down with just inside 23 kilometres still to race. Ryan Kavanagh was in that breakaway for the St. George Continental Cycling team, playing a defensive role, trying to protect the position of his teammate, the race leader, Dylan Kennett. As they approached the climb for the second time, once again it was Delco Marseille making things tough for the sprinters. It was then Filosi from the Delco Marseille team who was the next to attack. He was caught with just on 2.2 kilometres still to race, as the sprinters remaining at the front of the peloton were trying to put themselves into position to open up the throttle. The Burgos BH team looking to protect the interests of Lopez, jelly belly in the hope that Wolf would be able to get the job done. With just on 1 kilometre still to race, it was Ben Hill who made a bold move, trying to catch all the sprinters by surprise. They were wise to the move of Hill, who races regularly throughout Asia. Lots of the riders here, they're aware of the strength of Hill. They paid him due respect, and it was the Burgos BH team doing this chasing, trying to close it down. And it was only with 50 odd metres to go that Hill was actually caught, as the sprinters rolled over the top of him. Milano getting the stage ahead of Valet, and it was Martinez in third. And the photo finish will show that there was less than half a wheel in it between Milano and Valet, as Avila in the blue and white was frustrated. For Avila, he had to content himself with the 5th position on the stage. The debrief amongst the riders from the Burgos BH team. Good performance by Wan Lu Liao. He still leads the race for the red jersey as the best Chinese rider. Liu it is who's in second position, Chen in third place, followed by Zhao, and then Zheng rounding out the top 5 in that classification. But just as it is in the race for the orange jersey, the battle for red is tight. Just a 3-second advantage for Liu at the top of that competition. Once a Group Goubert having their conversation about the day that was, just blowing his nose, is Mark McNally, a man who 2 weeks ago became a father for the first time. No doubt he's already looking forward to getting home. British rider on the Belgium team, and McNally speaks fluent Flemish. Tomorrow we'll see a lot of the riders from this team as they will be defending the orange jersey of the race leader. Boris Verlet was the rider that they spoke about before this race got underway as the man that they would be hoping can get the job done. And so far, so good.
The first time at the climb, we're a bit too scared, I think. Richie rode the whole climb, but probably a bit too slow. He should have just gone. Because the second time we went, and I attacked over the top with a Delco rider, and we got caught by another Delco rider on the descent, and he went past us and we both got dropped. And then he rode, we got caught.
Yeah, I know that.
You know all that?
Yeah.
And then they just rode.
You attacked 300 to go.
A K to go. Just before the top
K to go.
Just one bit over a K to go before the top of the climb. I hit him. 40 metres, I reckon.
Ben Hill, he's right. It was 40 metres. He got caught with 40 metres to go. It was a courageous move, but if he was to wait until 500 metres to go, he wouldn't have been given any of a gap at all. He had to take that risk.
Eruit zit van die drempeltjes, ze sprong iedereen over en ja, links van mij springt er eentje niet goed en bam. Ik zei geen met tegen jou, als hier veel te ploegen waren. Zo is het, wacht even.
The debrief amongst the riders from Monte Group Goubert. That was Jasper Delate telling the story about the left-hand turn, and boom, out he went, slipping through the back door. This is the Burgos BH team. The rider with his back to us and the strap around his chest, that is Danny Lopez. He performed reasonably well today, but not as good as he was yesterday. He managed to make it onto the podium yesterday inside the top three, but not quite the case today. They tried to deliver the lead-out train for him, but he didn't have the same legs as he did 24 hours ago. The era trains, they were well represented at the front of the race today. They had Tisfozoni also finishing inside the top 15. Tisfezion it was. Now Tisfezion finishing in 14th position today. The beautiful region where we are, just a couple of hours away from Shanghai, and it celebrates the great heritage of China as well as some of the modern inventions with cutting-edge technology. Fishing is ever popular, the cuisine is outstanding. Buddhism also has a strong influence on the culture and the philosophy of living. Just a few moments away, hopefully, from getting the stage presentation underway. It will be familiar territory for Milano as the stage winner, just as he was yesterday. He will be collecting the green jersey again as well. New overall race leader, the orange jersey, slipping off the shoulders of Dylan Kennett. Unfortunately today for the Kiwi, he conceded 39 seconds. And based on the format of this race, he's no longer a chance of winning the general classification. Let's get down to the stage winner.
Juan Sebastian, 2 wins in 2 days. A good tour so far for you.
Feliz por otra etapa. El equipo estuvo perfecto y lo que queríamos se nos dio, que es vencer día a día las etapas y estar feliz.
He says, of course, they're happy about the second stage victory, and the team was perfect to lead him out, and so he day by day, and for sure they're going to win some more stages.
It was an exceptional performance on the climb by you today. You're a sprinter, but you're very strong on the climb.
Sí, un sprint rápido de potencia, pero bueno, hoy una etapa con un poco de nivel y es una etapa de las más fuertes de este tour.
Él preguntar que es un sprinter, pero muy bien en montaña. Sí.
And finally, for the next few stages, you're thinking very positively about some more victories?
Las otras etapas, piensa que más ganar más etapas.
Sí, esperemos que sí. Hoy era una etapa bien porque en la media montaña voy bien, voy fuerte. Entonces tenía que aprovechar hoy. Ya las otras etapas son más de sprint, más grupo, más sprinter. Entonces esperemos cómo se dan las cosas.
I think today was a little bit better for him because there was climbs and the group was selected, so they're smaller. But the next days we will see the biggest bunch comes, and of course they will try to have more victories. But it's more for sprint to sprint.
To the third place, Yannick Martinez.
And the sprints, they could become a little bit more complicated. It did work out well today for Milano with that reduced group at the front. But yesterday he proved to be the fastest anyway. The blue colours on the right, that is Yannick Martinez in third place. On the left, in the colours of Wanty Group, Goubert just putting his cap on. The glasses now on the top of the head. That is Boris Wallet. And in the middle, the winner of the stage, Juan Sebastian Milano. There's confirmation of those results. Milano ahead of Valet and then Martinez in third. It's been consistent, Martinez. He looked good yesterday. He rode reasonably well against the clock in the opening prologue.
Congratulations.
And it was a rather sedate Juan Sebastian Milano in that post-stage interview. The translation's being done by Arvis Pisiks, a Latvian rider working as a sports director for the French Delco Marseille team. Impressive linguistic skills from Arvis Pisiks. Both Valet and Milano will be required on the podium again to collect leaders' jerseys in various classifications.
Now we will present the orange jersey, which represents the leader.
Next up, the most important one of them all, the orange jersey for the leader of the race overall.
As we come back to the stage, Boris Valet from Team Wanty Group Gobert.
There he is, Boris Valet just handing off the medal, getting rid of the flowers as well, putting his watch back on, and ready to step out onto the podium for the orange jersey. Valet is one of the most experienced riders in the peloton. He's been a couple of seasons riding with the Lotto Soudal team, one of the biggest teams in the world. He's still just 25 years of age, Boris Valet, but he's not eligible for the Best Young Rider classification.
Stage 2, Boris Valet.
He's been a stage winner at the Tour of Wallonia. He's been a winner of the Grand Prix at Crickleon in honour of the late, sadly departed Claude Crickleon, who was the world champion back in 1984. He was the world champion, Claude Crickleon, winning that title in Spain. Boris Valet taking it all in his stride as the new race leader. Wanty Group Goubert, the team that he rides for, they will know how to defend this jersey. Wanty Group Goubert is the only team in the race which this year rode the Tour de France. So the team management, they'll be calm under the pressure of trying to defend that orange jersey.
Now we will present the green jersey, which represents the leader of the points classification. And the leader of the green jersey, of course.
Next up, the green jersey for the leader of the points classification.
To the stage, Juan Sebastian Milano from Team Manzana Postobon.
And Milano today has extended his advantage in the race for the green jersey. He'll be delighted with the stage victory, extending his lead in the battle for the green jersey as well. It's been a successful day. Milano in the green jersey. He's won 2 stages thus far. He'll be looking forward to stage 4 tomorrow. Tomorrow's stage, it is a circuit. There's 8 laps of a flat circuit, and he'll get to test just how fast his sprinting legs are. No doubt Boris Valet will be up for the challenge, and Jakub Morecko, who missed out on that lead group today, he'll be hoping to put himself in a position to try and win the stage tomorrow.
蓝山代表青年个人总成绩第1名山雨是追风少年，潜力无限，获得南极银行2018第9届环太湖国际公路自行车赛森蒂克巨荣赤珊瑚国家湿地公园、茅山国家5A 级旅游景区赛道蓝山的运动员是 科马克·麦克齐奥来自美国吉利贝马吉斯洲际队。
Two more jerseys to be presented. We've seen the orange jersey go onto the shoulders of Boris Valet, the green jersey for Milano. Now the blue jersey stays with the Irishman for the American team. Cormac McGough holds on to the blue jersey. It has been a dramatic day for McGough. He was involved in the first crash of the day, and you can see the amount of grit on his face as well. He'd have plenty of stories to tell from today's stage. So to his whole team. Somehow, after being involved in the fall, dropped on the climb, McGough managed to return to that lead group and finished effectively on the same time as the stage winner. So an impressive performance by the young Irishman.
请颁奖嘉宾与运动员合影留念。好，请嘉宾稍事休息，有请运动员退场。
Cormac McGough, the 22-year-old, making his way down the stairs a little gingerly. Fingers crossed he's not too seriously injured. He's got a little bit of a hobble though. And continuing at the top of the best Chinese rider classification.
The red jersey, which represents the best rider from the Greater China region. Let's welcome, he's the winner of the red jersey after 3 days in the race. Let's welcome Liu Wenyou from Hong Kong, China.
Wan Lo steps up onto the podium yet again, continuing his defense of red. Collected the jersey in the opening prologue, was happy to hold it yesterday, was a little nervous about being able to defend himself on the climbs today. He had ridden today's stage in a previous edition of this race, that was last year, and he did really well. He finished in 16th position on the stage today, so he can be pleased with his form and start to think long term about holding this all the way through to the finish on Sunday. Tomorrow's stage shouldn't pose too many problems for Liu. It's a relatively short stage of 98.6 kilometres, 8 laps around the circuit. Jinyan Rural Commercial Bank region for tomorrow's stage. The red jersey steps off, all smiles, and rightly so. Presentations out of the way, he might be required to do a few press interviews now, and I'm sure he's enjoying that process.
To the most aggressive rider of stage 2. Let's welcome back to the stage Boris Valet from Team Wanty Group Gobert.
And now the most combative or the most aggressive rider of the stage, this award going to Boris Valet of Wanty Group Gobert. It won't be defensive, it won't be an aggressive ride tomorrow, I wouldn't expect from Boris Valet. Don't expect Boris Valet to be aggressive tomorrow until the last 200 metres. He'll have the orange jersey on as the overall race leader. His teammates will be around him trying to defend that position at the top of the general classification. But no matter which way you cut it or look at it, Wanty Group Gobert have been having an outstanding race. Yet to win a stage, but it's the overall classification that they are hunting. And with Boris Valet, they have put themselves into the box seat. And now the leaders of all the various classifications will be up onto the podium to spray the champagne. A tradition that started back in France when there was the Grand Prix there near the region of Champagne. And it has spread right around the world for most sporting events. Liao in the red jersey, the leader of the best Chinese rider. The green jersey for Milano, the leader of the points classification and the winner of back-to-back stages. McGough in blue, the best young rider. He is directing traffic and making sure that they all come to the front of the podium. And the orange jersey, the leader of the race overall, Boris Valet of Wanty Group Gobert. Now let's see who's got the most experience.
Congratulations to all the winners.
It looks like it's the Colombian in green, Milano. Brief celebration, then they'll turn their focus back onto tomorrow's stage. A stage of 98.6 kilometres. It is relatively flat tomorrow, but as we've seen throughout the race so far, that won't deter the breakaways. This has been an aggressive opening couple of days of racing. Milano has proven to be the man to beat in the sprint finishes. Can anybody get the better of him? We'll find that out tomorrow. So too the question as to whether Boris Vallet will be able to defend his lead in the overall classification. Join us tomorrow for more from the Tour of Taihu Lake.